Okay, I call this meeting to order. Can I have a mover and a seconder to Deputy Mayor Coghlan, Councillor Cabral, that the regular meeting of the Council of Township of Springwater of September 18, 2019 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Please rise to accompany us in singing the national anthem. Thank you.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all our sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true North, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Councillor, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest this evening? Deputy Mayor Coghlan?
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you, the item on the agenda pertaining to Coghlan Road and repaving, while it's not a conflict, I just wanted to make it acknowledge that I do live on Coghlan Road, but I will be still voting on the issue.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Fine. Okay, we move forward to deputations. I welcome Lisa Faithful to come forward and make a deputation of livestock on properties less than 86 acres. Thank you. State your name and address, please, and just pull the microphone close there and
Okay.
let's fix it. There we go.
Okay. Can you hear me? First off, I'd like to say I don't do this very well, so please bear with me. Yeah, okay, sorry. What's that? Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor Allen and council members. My name is Lisa Faithful, and this is my husband, Stephen. We live on 2128 North Orlake Road, and we have 2 hens and a beehive. I'm here tonight to speak to you about having the current bylaw change, which requires a person to have in excess of 86.6 acres of land to have any kind of livestock. Firstly, I would like to mention that while the bylaw officer refers to my chickens as livestock, I have spoken to quite a few people in the township that keep backyard hens, and I don't think any of us would refer to our hens as livestock. To us, they are pets, with the added benefit of providing us with lovely fresh eggs each day. As the price of groceries continues to climb, interest in urban farming in big cities and towns is on the rise. Besides growing fruits and vegetables, many people across the country also want to keep animals like chickens in their backyard. It's just a different way of doing things, connecting with the food source and educating our children, showing them that there are alternative ways. And this is not new. This is just about bringing back what people used to do years ago. Somewhere along the lines, it got lost. We've removed ourselves so far from our food sources that the reintroduction of these practices seems odd and even worrisome to people who haven't been exposed to it. It's been proven time and time again that small, well-managed livestock can thrive in an urban setting. It's also been proven that people who keep backyard hens are typically well-educated individuals who just want to live a different lifestyle. It makes it frustrating when local laws prevent people from partaking in small-scale hobby ventures. We shouldn't have to be considered criminals because we want to live a more natural, self-sustaining lifestyle. The positive aspects of keeping backyard hens, beyond the obvious, which is having natural eggs, includes the fact that they are also excellent composters, turning kitchen scraps into wonderfully rich compost that can be used in your gardens while having the added benefit of cutting down on garbage going to the landfill. Many towns and cities are now allowing backyard hens. Caledon recently approved backyard hens, and a pilot program is underway in Toronto and Edmonton. Hens are also allowed in Brampton, Newmarket, Niagara Falls, and Kitchener, as well as Vancouver, Whitehorse, Victoria, and some boroughs of Montreal. Most major U.S. cities also allow backyard hens. I believe there are three main issues that people are concerned about with regards to the keeping of backyard hens: the smell, the noise, and potential diseases. Well, the chicken coop can have a smell to it. If it is kept clean and the number of chickens is kept to a smaller amount, they don't have any more smell to them than a dog would. Hens do make some noise. I say hens, as roosters definitely can be excessively noisy, and most locations that allow chickens do not allow roosters. When they're laying, they squawk for about 5 minutes, and if they're threatened, they can also be quite vocal. However, you will never have an issue with a chicken keeping you up all night like a dog would, or making noise for hours on end like that neighborhood dog that just won't shut up. Other than the above-mentioned noises, chickens are very quiet animals. Chickens do carry disease such as salmonella, which can be transmitted to humans. However, the risks involve the owners themselves and not their neighbors. Proper hygiene when dealing with their birds is required. Many of the birds that we keep as pets, and some of the birds that come to our feeders, also have diseases which can be spread to humans. It's just a matter of being well informed and practicing clean habits when dealing with any of these animals. The fact that so many cities, many of them very large cities, allow the practice of keeping backyard hens leads me to believe that the research on any issues involving backyard hens has been studied extensively and found to be of no major concern. I've also got a link there which shows where I've got a lot of my information. I'd like to speak about the bees now. Excuse me. My purpose in starting beekeeping was not for the honey, but to do my part in the fight to protect the bees. As I'm sure most of you are aware, the bees are in danger. We have poisoned them with our pesticides to the point that they are in real danger in many places in the world. As a result, many people have been making a concerted effort to help them. This aid is not just for the concern of the bees. We as a species rely heavily on bees for pollination of our food crops. Some estimate that 75% of our food crops and 95% of our wild plants are pollinated by bees. If the bees were to disappear, we would be in real trouble. Economic issues also surround the decline of bees. As bees decline, other more expensive ways of pollination must be utilized, resulting in higher fruit and vegetable prices. Bees will travel up to 8 kilometers, but typically travel 3 kilometers to find food. Therefore, it is important that we have bees in many locations, not just segregated to the countryside. Currently, many major cities, including New York City, Paris, and Boston, allow hives to be kept within their borders in very close proximity to people. Locally, there is a hive at a nursing home in Barrie as well. While many people have the misconception that there's a huge danger from a beehive, nothing could be further from the truth. As one person put it, if you're not a flower, bees just don't care about you. Bees also die when they sting, so they don't really go around doing it willy-nilly. I can literally stand right next to my hive and turn my back, and I would not even be aware that there was a hive close to me. The bees go about their business, coming and going, without any concern for the people around them. While I was taking my beekeeping course, I have stood in a field of at least 30 to 40 hives. The instructor and several of us had absolutely no bee-type protective clothing on, just our clothes, and none of us were stung or even bothered by any of the bees. There are even beekeepers that have allergies to bee stings. They obviously have to be a little bit more careful than the rest of us, but it doesn't stop them from doing it because the danger is minimal, even when working with the bees. So the danger to any neighbors is so small that it could be considered to be no more than the danger posed by any wild bees in the vicinity. Many people think they have been stung by bees when in fact they've actually been stung by yellow jackets. These types of wasps, which look very similar to a bee, can sting repeatedly and do not die upon doing so. They are also much more aggressive than bees. The other concern and misconception people have about bees surrounds the whole African killer bees thing. As beekeepers, we have and continue to breed species specifically for gentleness, and these bees have none of the aggressive behaviors of the Africanized bees. As I indicated earlier regarding the chickens, the fact that many cities allow and actually even encourage people to keep hives within their borders leads me to believe that a vast amount of prior research has gone into the practice of urban beekeeping, and it has been found that it has been found to be not only beneficial to have bees in our urban areas and cities, but poses no danger to people. The world as a whole is in trouble, and we need to start taking some real actions to protect it and reverse the damage we have caused. Most cities and towns have a green plan under which they're doing things like planting bee-friendly plants, reducing pesticide use, and encouraging composting, among other things. It's antiquated laws like the current one, which prevent and punishes people for trying to do their part. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. That was a very good presentation. Thank you. So I open the floor to questions, comments. Deputy Mayor Coghlan.
Through you, Mayor Ellen.
fine.
Thank you. That was great. Take a breath. You did well. It's not
Okay.
easy to come forward to council, and it's definitely not easy sitting here doing the same thing back. So thank you
Okay.
very much for the information, and I do believe that we are moving that item up on the
Yes,
agenda
we're going
this
to
evening.
move item 8.2 up to talk about, to review, but did you have a question or a comment? No? Anybody else? This. Yes, Councillor Ritchie.
Mayor Allen, thank you. I'm Perry Ritchie, and your counselor, and
Yes,
thank you
I've
for
spoken to
coming.
you.
I know we've spoke before
Yep.
on the phone, so we're going to be talking about it later there. So I see where there's a need, but I see where, I want to see how other municipalities are handling this. Like, you're right, they're not livestock. A lot of them have them as pets. Like,
Yeah.
but it's a fine line how we look at this. We want to do our homework, so that's
Of
why
course.
we invite you to come and speak tonight. And
Well, that's
how
why I
we-
mentioned that the bigger cities, like
Yeah.
if a big city like New York City or Boston or Paris or Victoria, like if they can have these animals
Yeah.
in their borders, like it's ridiculous that we can't. It's
I'm
absolutely
curious to know how other
ridiculous.
municipalities in Ontario are handling this. But again, I welcome you and thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, before we pull forward items, we have a question period. If anybody, oh yes, the delegation, sorry. Mover and a seconder to receive the delegation, Deputy Mayor Coghlan, Councillor Ritchie. That the delegation from Lisa Faithful regarding livestock on properties less than 86 acres be received. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, question period. If anybody wishes to come forward and ask a question about something on the agenda tonight, they've got 2 minutes to do that, and question period lasts for 10 minutes. Come forward, please. Please state your name and address.
Just making sure. My name is Søren Clemmensen. I'm the president of Central Ontario ATV Club. Live 1043 Mosley Street, Wasaga Beach. The ATV question is on the agenda again tonight, so I just wanted to kind of give you guys a quick question on it. The original proposal we sent in March 6th, 2018, went through the master trails plans, outlined processes, and it came back to, we did the open house in September last year. The application was supposed to go to council on January 23rd this year and was put on hold on January 9th because we were gonna look at, or that council was gonna look at opening or reviewing the bylaw in general. And we had 2 open houses, or council did 2, or the township did 2 open houses in March, and we got the report back here August 7th, where the whole thing was put on hold, pending Bill 107, which could be another 2 years in the future. And the public survey results were released 8 days later, which has not even been considered at this point. And then tonight there's a new motion, and we are 19 months later after our application originally came in. So what we would like to know that is, what's the intention? Are we moving forward with this? Are we going back to the application we did 19 months ago? Are we stopping the whole thing? What's council's view?
Okay, thank you. Stay tuned, and we'll be moving on to that. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well, let's start by then, we'll pull 8.2 forward first, and then we'll deal with 12.1, which is a notice of motion. So 8.2 is an options report on backyard chickens. So I need a mover to get this on the floor. Councillor Chapman, Deputy Mayor Coghlan. And before we open it up for discussion, I'll go to Director Spagnol to give us an overview of the report and the options that are proposed.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. The report that's sitting before council tonight is the result of a question that's come up on a number of occasions regarding backyard chickens and the provisions of the zoning bylaw and how they relate to people who would like to have backyard chickens on their property. The current zoning bylaw, the way that it's written right now, defines poultry as a livestock unit and essentially prohibits and only limits the keeping of poultry or chickens on properties in an agricultural zone that have 86 acres or more land area to them. The report that's before council provides two options, and it is a result of an information report that was before council on July 3rd. The options that are being presented as part of this report seek to get council direction as to whether or not council would like to have staff move forward through a consultative process to have a survey sent out to determine what the interest level is from residents of Springwater with having either backyard chickens as a permitted use or not having backyard chickens as a permitted use. So the report details option 1, which is that council can choose to maintain the status quo, or option 2, which is that staff be directed to initiate a formal consultation process to seek input from residents of the Township of Springwater, including a survey and updating the township website to obtain what the interests are of the residents within the municipality with respect to this issue. The report details that there are a number of considerations that would have to go into such a process to permit backyard chickens. Some of them would be the keeping and management of manure. Others would be consideration of potential off-site impacts related to neighbors. There's a number of considerations that are referenced in the report. And really, staff is seeking direction from council as to how council wishes to proceed. And I'm open to answer any questions about the zoning bylaw and how this issue has been treated by staff in the past.
Thank you, Director Spagnol. Just clarification, Lisa Faithful came forward tonight and included bees as well as chickens. So what would be the consideration of such things as bees as well as chickens with respect to this?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Beekeeping is also listed under the same agricultural uses. So under the zoning bylaw, the same would apply for beekeeping as well. Really, council has the option, if council wishes, to direct staff to look at other type agricultural uses which may be appropriate in certain instances with proper licensing and things like that to be considered as part of the discussion. Staff is at your disposal in that respect.
Thank you. Before we open up for discussion, Councillor Chapman, which option are you proposing in your motion?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I like option number 2, where it goes back and have the survey, just like we did with the ATVs. I also agree of the backyard chicken idea. I think it's very educational, economical, as long as there are guidelines. I totally agree with option 2. Thank you.
Okay, other discussions? Councillor Ritchie first.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I support option 2 as well, too. I think we need to take a look at this. Like I mentioned to the, Mrs. Faithful there, I want to know what other municipalities are doing. And I'd like to know the length of time. Maybe the Director of Planning give us some idea as to what we're looking at and the length of time that this process would take. Thank you.
Director Belcourt? Oh, sorry. Director, he's gone. I looked down there and he usually sat there. You were one chair forward, so you're better looking there, so go ahead, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, for the question through you to Councillor Ritchie. From a time frame perspective, I forgot to mention that there is a survey that is provided as an appendix to the report. So it is being suggested that there could be a public consultation meeting to go over some of the interests and some of the considerations of the residents, tentatively scheduled for November 7th, 2019. Depending on how the applications are dealt with, the issues dealt with, you could be looking at, from a zoning bylaw amendment perspective, anywhere from I would say a 2 to 3 month process, provided that there is not any appeals on any zoning changes to this. Now, that said, what needs to be factored into that process is the public consultation. There needs to be a report that goes back to council to report the findings of the public consultation. So you could be into 2 months at that point. So I would say anywhere from 3 to 6 months in order to finalize something. It has to be, the other consideration also is that there could be other revisions to other municipal bylaws that have to be brought into the mix. So for example, there might need to be changes to the township's licensing bylaw if for some reason licensing is required as a result of the process to potentially permit backyard chickens.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Actually, I guess I'm directing it to Director Spagnol. I guess what I started looking at when we talked about livestock and I looked at the plan there, I thought about other livestock. I would suspect right now that anybody who has a rabbit as a pet right now would be in violation of the bylaw as well. I don't know too many people who keep mink, but I suspect there might be the odd person out there that's keeping chinchillas in their basement. That used to be something that was done a long time ago. So I guess what I'm saying is maybe we should look at the types of small animals that people might like to have at their house and include them in this entire dialogue. Because it'll be chickens today, and if we move forward with them, next springtime, we'll have to put something else in there maybe to accommodate people with rabbits or a chinchilla. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comment? Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, and for the record, I have no objections to people having chickens or anything else because they're not my neighbors, and I'm not having them myself either. But what people need to understand, there's a responsibility of us as council, and council's aware of that, to make sure we get all the facts before we make a decision. I support option 2. My concern, though, is that 2 things we should consider, and one is to get input from our Township Agricultural Advisory Committee, who are agricultural people and could give us some insight. The other issue I understand is that, and I questioned through to our director, is that I understand that keeping backyard hens could be hazardous to our poultry industry with diseases and so on. And I also understand there's other municipalities that maybe allowed backyard hens at one time, but because of the risks to the poultry industry, have now disallowed having backyard hens. So those are things I think we need to know about. Maybe we should consider hearing from our advisory committee before we put staff to all the trouble of going forward with option 2.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So you and I both sit on the Agricultural Advisory Committee, so I would be willing to put this on the next agenda, but our meeting, I believe, is not until November or December. And if we're going to try to expedite this process, I'm thinking our meeting might be a little too late, and maybe we should schedule a sooner meeting. But it would be important to get input from those that sit around that table and see what they have to say about it too. Thank you.
Yeah, the committee chair does have the option to call a special meeting. And the other thing is, it's a small committee, so we could poll the 4 or 5 members of the committee without having a formal meeting. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, and if we're going to do that and it's going to be delayed, would it be appropriate for us to ask staff not to do any enforcement in the way of bylaw until we've come to a resolution?
I think that's a fair request. I'm not sure, Director Spagnol, do you see any problem with that?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm just looking over at the chief building official, and I think he can kick me if I'm speaking out of turn. Typically and historically, when there's been matters that have been bylaw enforcement issues and there's something up for consideration that is related to that issue, bylaw enforcement is held off on laying any charges through the courts in the formal process. So there wouldn't be any further enforcement of those specific matters until the issues being considered are resolved.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions with respect to the motion moving forward with option 2? Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to reiterate Councillor Hannah's point there, I think it's a good idea to have the Agricultural Committee look at it. I think they have the knowledge and the expertise to offer some guidance.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Hannah?
Would it be appropriate then to make a suggestion that, a second motion, that we just defer this until we hear from that committee? Rather than put the staff to a lot of trouble and work before we hear from that committee?
Well, as I say, I think there are ways of communicating with them fairly quickly, and that would be input as well as the staff report, and which would also be including looking at what other townships are doing, have done. So I don't think it needs to be held up any further. Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn. I was just going to say the same. If the report could encompass the practices of our neighboring municipalities and also encompass the opinion of our agricultural committee to receive that information with residents at the same time. I don't need one before the other. If we can just receive that as part of one report, I would be satisfied by that.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no other, yes, Director Eppolito. I always have to think about the pronunciation of your last name correctly.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just wanted to make note, if the direction from council is to, during the deliberations and looking into the matter of the backyard chickens, to step away from enforcement purposes, if we can seek direction from council on that.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn. I would not be in support of an amendment as such to the motion. We do have a bylaw that's in force, and we haven't had the information come forward to us to change it. We often have people come forward about signs or about other things, and we hold true to our bylaws until we've made an educated and informed decision. And I think that while this is something we are contemplating as a council, that is the bylaw that's in place today. That's the direction to staff, and we are working diligently to try and update it and make a more sensible or different approach. But I think between now and then, that the bylaw should remain as it is, and bylaw should still enforce as it stands with our current bylaw.
And Councillor Chapman, you as the mover, are you in agreement with that?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was going to say no, but when Deputy Mayor Coughlin brought in signs and all the other bylaws, I would have to agree on that to keep bylaw as it is until we have a true motion on this and a true decision.
Okay. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a comment there. I'm wondering if it might be agreeable to suggest that bylaw be reactive based on complaints rather than proactive, and seek out people that happen to have some chickens in their backyards. Would that be
Yeah, I don't think we need to include that in the motion, but I think they get the drift. And okay, so we have a mover and a seconder that the report from the senior planner regarding backyard chickens, options dated September 18, 2019 be received, and then option 2, the staff be directed to undertake a public consultation process with respect to backyard chickens, including a survey, updating the township's website page, and holding a public open house, and report back to council. All those in favor?
Recorded vote, please.
Okay.
Recorded vote has been requested from Councillor Hannah. I will read out the name of each council member and just say yay or nay. Councillor George Cabral,
Yes.
Councillor Perry Ritchie,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin,
Yes?
Mayor Don Allen,
Yay.
Councillor Ma Chapman,
Yes.
Councillor Anita Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Hannah.
Yes.
The motion has been carried.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're pulling forward 12.1, which is the notice of motion. By Deputy Mayor Coughlin, September 4th, 2019 regular meeting, regarding allowance of off-road vehicles on municipal highways. So, we need a seconder to that motion. Councillor Cabral. So I'll turn it over to Deputy Mayor Coughlin just to have a preamble with respect to her motion.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. This motion is just coming forward as I felt that there was a standstill. I felt that we did have a motion on the table. We were making progress with regards to alternatives to the existing restrictions for off-road vehicles. We are fully aware that there is provincial regulation that could or may affect what could happen in Springwater, but we don't have timelines, and we have residents who are asking us to consider this. We have conducted open houses, we have the surveys, we have the results, and I do feel that we need to continue to move forward with this initiative. So that's why this motion is here tonight.
Any other comments or discussions with respect to this? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I agree with Deputy Mayor Coughlin. This has been going on for a long time, as our speaker said, and I think we need to move forward with it, with or without the regulations, and it can be changed whenever that happens. Thanks.
Councillor Hannah?
Thank you. I'm just curious how long a delay this will take, and if we could not approve it now, that we have all the information we need, and I think everybody is supportive of it.
CAO Schmidt, I know for one, we haven't had feedback on the surveys that a lot of time was spent on, but CAO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to members of council. So I have had some discussions with our friends from the Central Ontario ATV Club regarding the request. So we're more than willing to work with them and try to bring something forward to council regarding their specific request. I do want to clarify that the idea would be is that staff would work with the club and come back with some kind of a proposal, I guess, if you will, for council's consideration based on their request or revised request but the notion wasn't to essentially open up every roadway as per Bill 107 at this stage. The idea would be is that we'll bring forward the request for council's consideration, and then once Bill 107 regulations are approved, then we would consider or make further changes to the bylaw at that time.
Yes, I think an updated report with those factors certainly would be helpful to us. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I appreciate the Coke people are here, and I know that this is originally started being driven by them, but I can't help but think that we're kind of narrowing the vision to the point where other users with ATVs, farmers, whatnot, that want to maybe traverse into town to buy something, they're going to be excluded from this. And to be quite honest with you and quite frank, I think part of our problem with people trespassing, a lot of our complaints, is because they're not allowed to drive on the road, not the other way around. They end up trespassing on private property because they can't access where they want to go through the normal means. And I would suggest that I would be in favor of looking to open it up a lot more generously than what the ATV people are looking for, because there are other users out there that aren't being represented here, and I think we have to, as a council, take them into consideration at the same time. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn, and as a follow-up to Councillor Hanna and Cabral's comments, I too was under the impression that part of this report would be the option to open the roads in Springwater, much like our neighboring municipalities. We do have information from our neighbors. We do have the information from our residents, and while we may not have, as a council, formally read through them, we hear from our residents on a daily basis. And to be clear, this did not come through through COATV. This has just been something from the first time I knocked on a door till today that our residents have been begging us to do, because it's a short jaunt from their driveway to a trail and they just can't get there. So I agree with Councillor Cabral that it's not just there's more to it than I'm going to say pleasurable riding. There are land uses, there are lots of businesses who are very excited for this to happen, gas stations and restaurants and everything in between. So I'm excited for this report to come forward, but I do feel that an option for this council to consider open roads should be included in that, whereas if COATV is asking for trail extensions, that could be an option A, B, and C. But I would like to see an option on the report moving forward, which I would support. We have been talking about a 1-year trial so that we can re-look at this a year from now to make sure that we've made the right decision. But I do think that open routes is a viable option for Springwater Township.
CAO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, through to council, if that's council's wish, then definitely we can provide an options report. The only thing I would state to that, and our opinion or our professional opinion on this is that my only fear would be is not knowing what the regulations are actually going to be. If we open it up to everything and then the regulation comes out and states otherwise, then we're in a position where we have to pull back. That could be difficult for us to deal with. So that would be my only concern, but again, we'll take direction from council as you wish.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I would like access, at the very least, to the survey results and the open house conversations. I haven't seen any of that, so I really would like to know what people have had to say about it. Thanks.
So I think we're talking about this motion now. The question is, does this require an amendment to clarify? I had the question because it states in it, in accordance with the previous requests of the Central Ontario ATV Club. So, Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Yeah, I would make a friendly amendment then and just scratch that out, because I think the motion that I put on the table 18 months ago was to have staff investigate options to open the roads. And I think that it's just morphed into something because there's been a lot of information and a lot of discussion throughout the communities. So I would be absolutely satisfied with it, just that we continue to move forward. Staff is generating a report that includes the information from the survey and options A, B, and C, including open roads.
Yeah. Councillor Cabral, I would presume you're all right with that?
Sorry, thank you. Yes, I'm happy with that. As long, doesn't matter if it specifies a particular group. I think the idea here is to permit ATVs onto the roadways.
Okay, the option as changed in a friendly manner is whereas a report was received from the Director of Recreation, Parks and Properties dated August 7, 2019, recommending that deliberations regarding additional off-road vehicle use on municipal highways be put on hold until such time that the regulations are updated and Bill 107, Getting Ontario Moving Act changes come into force, and whereas council wishes to continue deliberations in the absence of the regulations, be it resolved that council direct staff to continue with the review of the permitting off-road vehicles on Springwater's municipal highways, and further that staff provide a subsequent report outlining the results of the public consultation process with options for consideration. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now we move back up on the agenda. 6.1, adoption of minutes of council. Can I have a mover and a second to get this on the table, please? Councillor Chapman, and Deputy Mayor Coghlan. Any of the minutes listed, questions or being polled? All right, seeing none, we have a mover and a seconder that the minutes of council listed herein be approved as presented. The minutes of the special meeting of council September 4, 2019, minutes of the regular meeting of council September 4, 2019, minutes of the special meeting of council September 4, and minutes of the regular meeting of council of September 4. All those in favor? Carried. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes of boards, committees, and other organizations? Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Chapman. Any questions with respect to these? All right, the motion is that the minutes of the boards, committees, and other organizations listed herein be received for information. That the minutes of, and I'll read each one: Heritage Advisory Committee, June 25, 2019. Committee of Adjustments, June 26, 2019. Committee of Adjustments, July 24, 2019. Midhurst Community Recreation Association, July 15, 2019. Cultural Advisory Committee meetings of June 13, August 6, and August 26, and the Agriculture Advisory Committee meeting of August 8, 2019. All those in favor? Carried. Moving on to correspondence and information items, 7.1. Can I have a mover to get this on the table, please? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Chapman. Any comments or questions with respect to items 1 to 4? Councillor Hannah.
7.1.2.
Do you want a poll or just a question?
I just have questions for staff for clarification, thank you.
Go ahead, please.
I guess if we could have staff explain, the motion came before council, if this is correct that I'm reading, came before council to extend this development for 5 years. We passed the motion to be 3 years, but I read now from the LPAT report, if I'm reading the correct one, sorry, that it has now gone back to 5 years.
Director Spagnell.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. What's on the agenda are amended orders from LPAT. When the original orders that were issued by LPAT in July, when they were issued, they had indicated within the decision that council was in agreement to a 5-year extension of the draft plans that were considered at that time. When staff saw that, they notified the township's council from Weir Falls to notify LPAT that the orders needed to be corrected to reflect the council resolution, which only endorsed a 3-year extension to the draft plan of subdivision. So as a result, the matter was put back to LPAT just for clarification purposes, and LPAT finalized its order, but maintaining the 5-year extension for the draft plan applications, the draft plan subdivisions. So as a matter of fact, staff had noted to LPAT that there needed to be a correction on the order because in fact, council only endorsed a 3-year extension, but LPAT maintained the original order to keep the 5-year time frame for those subdivisions to be approved.
Further?
I think, and I'd just like to add that the developers were happy with the 3-year, not the 5-year, but they are under the impression that the township asked to have a 5-year, and the confusion is not as a result of us asking for a 5-year. We were happy with the 3. Developers were happy with the 3. The confusion, I would suggest, was on the part of LPAT.
Okay, and so we can make that clear to them, Director Spagnell?
Mayor Allen, as far as where the confusion lies, yes, I can agree that it was with LPAT. As far as any request coming from staff or the township to have a 5-year time frame for those draft plan approvals to be issued, that wouldn't be staff's mandate, because staff's mandate is to follow the will of this council, and that will was followed when those
No.
resolutions were sent to LPAT.
Yes, but I think Councillor Hannah's point is that he believes that the developers are under the impression that the initiative was from Springwater, and I just want, please, can we make that clear that, or should they know that it was from LPAT, because they had representation there, so.
We can make that clear, Mayor
Okay,
Allen.
thank you. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So that was my motion to make that the 3-year extension, not to 5. Does LPAT then have the authority to overrule a council decision like that?
I'll let Director
Thank you.
Spagnol comment on that.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Moore. The quick answer is yes. The reason why that is because LPAT was the original approval authority of the subdivisions. So extensions to draft plan approval really does fall under their jurisdiction.
Okay, any other items that'd like to be questioned or commented upon? So the motion is the correspondent, sorry, Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Actually, I did have a question here. It was regarding 7.1, item 3. Letter from Service Lines Warranty, follow-up on delegation.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if in fact, they want Springwater to enter into a partnership with them where they basically carry the ball, contact everybody and look after this warranty from where the sewer pipe ends for us and is taken over by the homeowner. And I just wanted to know whether or not we have any data about any warranty claims that have already been processed. I'm just concerned that down the road, if we enter into an agreement with them and we are the ones that are providing the information and making it available to the residents, if they end up with an issue or a problem getting the warranty satisfied when the pipes do break or fall apart, and they're not satisfied, are they then going to be coming to see Springwater Township for resolution on that? That's my concern.
Okay, we'll direct that to Director Coleman, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. This letter is actually seeking for us to endorse them to offer that warranty or insurance, however they want to put it. We currently do not have a partnership with them, so right now homeowners have no option other than to pay for any repairs on the private side themselves.
Follow up? Thank you very much, Mayor Allen. I understand what their process was. Their process was to come here and make a presentation in order to partnership with the township, but then we would be the ones that would be letting all of our residents know about this warranty plan and they could opt into it. My concern is by entering into that partnership now, that's what they're looking for, is that I just don't want to see us down the road assuming some responsibility when warranties go wrong, because we're the ones that they're going to end up calling. And I just kind of wonder, although they've got other municipalities that are on board, this is a private venture, maybe they should just go send everybody something in the mail and get the residents themselves to opt in or opt out. That's my only concerns.
CAO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral. So in my previous life in another municipality, they also came and the township that I was with endorsed it, and same concerns came to the table as to liability or potential liability. One thing we can do is circle back with them to make sure, or with AMO LAS, to make sure that we have that information. My understanding is they're just seeking our approval, but that there is no liability or ought to be no liability to the township. But as we know, things can happen. But again, we can do a little bit more research in that regards and just verify that there hasn't been any instances that we're aware of.
Thank you. I'd be quite satisfied with that. Just
Thank you.
concerned.
Okay, so the motion is that, I'll read through the correspondence and information items listed herein be received as information. Notice of decision, REOPA 55, lots 8 and 9 on Plan 51M 995 on Marnie Lane. Number 2, amended orders PL 131125 and 131129. The Midhurst Development Doran Road, Inc. and Carson Road Development, Inc. Number 3, letter from Service Lines Warranties. Follow up on the delegation AMO LAS Water and Sewer Warranty Program. And number 4, letter from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Bill 108, More Homes, More Choice Act 2019. All those in favor? Carried. Action items, option reports. Number 8.1, we're dealing with 4 Queen Street West. Advantage Homes, can I get a mover to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Cabral. Discussion, questions? Yes, Councillor Moore, which option are you motioning? Okay, then what we will do is, who wrote this plan? Director Spagno, can you just give us a quick overview of this request, please, just to refresh our memories? And
Mayor Allen, the request here for the Community Improvement Program is for funding under the CIP for facade improvements in Elmville.
yes,
The requester is coming in because the previous facade or the existing facade is constructed out of wood. And what they're looking at doing, because they've experienced some bubbling of paint and what appears to be rot of the facade, a stucco type material to redo the facade and the signage on the property. And essentially what the grant, what the CIP would allow for is, I believe, funding in the amount of $1,500 to contribute to that facade improvement.
plus the other piece, so a total of $5,522. There's a part A, part B, facade and signage, right?
My apologies, Mayor Allen, that's correct. Yes.
So the total is $11,045. They're requesting $5,522 being 50%. And we have $37,321 remaining unutilized in the CIP program. Any further questions? Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I support this 100%. These people, when they bought this building, it was a former hardware store as long as I can remember from my youth. When I was a child, he bought it, they fixed it up, and the back part was a warehouse, and they've spent some money on it, really made some good improvements, and he had a nice facade on the front street. I'd say one of the better ones, but over the last number of years, it has decayed, and that's why they've taken this program to improve it, and I like this program. It's there to help for people to make improvements to their storefronts, so it has a nice facade, and I welcome these people doing that, and I support this 100%. That would be application be approved, so that would be number 8.
Yeah. So we'll go back to the mover, being Councillor Moore. Now that we're refreshed on the topic, which one are you moving? Good. Yes, it is. Okay, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Actually, it's through to, I guess, Director Spagno. My question here is with respect to the way the funds are allocated. My reading of this, and maybe I'm reading it incorrectly, it's based on the quoted price. And my concern, I guess, would be that at the day's end, if the price ends up being less, do we still pay the amount that was based on the quote, or do we pay the amount based on the final cost that they paid for it?
Well, there are rules written in the CIP documents with respect to that, and it's the actual amount, but I'll let you answer that, Director Spagno.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through to Councillor Cabral, it is the actual amount that is spent on the project.
Okay, follow up.
Follow up?
Thank you. The other thing I wanted to ask is, there's a picture of their current facade there, and I'm familiar with it, but I was wondering if there was a picture or an artist's rendering of what they anticipate putting up. Is that available to us? Thank you.
Director Spagno.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through to Councillor Cabral. The reason why I'm laughing here is Mayor Allen is smiling is because he asked the exact same question. There has not been a rendering provided as part of the request. However, the idea is that the finished facade will look similar or the same as to what's there with just the different materials. The other response to that is from an application standpoint and a CIP standpoint, the municipality tried to make it as less onerous and less costly or least costly to requesters as possible. So to have them come in with renderings through this request might be an additional expense. So it's one of those situations where we get the general flavor of what they're trying to do through their applications and through those descriptions, so we don't necessarily require those types of renderings because there is an additional expense to this. But it is something that we could consider in the future if there's something that's different than what currently exists or that doesn't follow the guidelines set forth under the Elmville Red Brick Guideline document or the CIP.
Thank you. I guess that would have been my thing, even if it had have been there, that it's gonna be similar to, but with nothing there, I didn't know what to go on.
Okay, Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was just going to say, I was by there yesterday for the library meeting. It's already underway. I think you can already see what's happening, and it's all plasticed and it's half done.
Thank you. All right, do you have a further question?
Maybe it can wait till after.
Put your mic on.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just actually, Councillor Moore's comment there, that they're not the first ones to do something there, and I've noticed the last couple of times, maybe this would be something for Director Ippolito, when they close off the sidewalk, there's no barrier set up for pedestrians to cross out onto the roadway to keep them away from the passing traffic. And I'm just wondering if that's something that we should not be requiring them to do, because sometimes they take up an inordinate amount of the sidewalk, and pedestrians have to step out onto the roadway to get by.
Okay, Director Ippolito?
Through Mayor Allen to Councillor Cabral. So when a situation like this does occur, one of the things that is looked at is a temporary occupancy permit from Public Works to allocate a safe way of maneuvering around that area. However, the scaffolding and the hoarding can be something that we maybe will be looking at a little bit more in detail. We've had quite a bit of activity on that street this year. And it is definitely something that we got to look at a little bit more, even for accessibility purposes.
Okay, so we have the motion moved and seconded that the report from planner regarding CI 219-002 Advantage Homes dated September 18, 2019 be received, and that council, having considered the application presented, the requirements of the community improvement plan, and total funding requests, direct as follows. A, that the application be approved and the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the appropriate agreements. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, we did 8.2. Now we're moving action reports, consent agenda 9.1. And we've got 9.2 through 9.6. Anybody like one or more of those pulled? I need a mover and a seconder to get it on the floor. Councillor Cabral, Deputy Mayor Coghlan. Councillor Cabral.
I'd like to pull 9.5, please.
9.5, any others? Councillor Hannah.
Comment on 9.1.6.
9.1.6. Okay, why don't we start with the comment on 9.1.6, 9.6, please, Councillor Hannah.
Just that I support the idea of submitting the report. I was just asking if we could consider sending it out to all the other municipalities. Frequently, the other municipalities, when they're doing things, they send it on to everybody and ask them to forward a notice supporting their objectives, and I would think it'd be nice if we could get support from other municipalities as well.
CAO Schmidt is shaking his head, so that can happen. So we have a mover and a seconder that the action report items 9.2 through 9.6 be received, and that recommendations contained therein be approved as presented. 9.242 Bertram Industrial Parkway security release. 9.3 site plan amendment SP 219-002 Terjna 21 Bertram Industrial Parkway. 9.4 Estates of Anton Mills pre-servicing agreement. 9.6 joint and several liability consultation. with the exception of 9.1.5 to be dealt with separately. All those in favor? Carried. 9.15, Councillor Cabral, I'll let you start. Oh, let's get it on the floor, please. Deputy Mayor Coghlan, Councillor Cabral, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I have some concerns with this particular staff recommendation report. Not with the first part of the tender, 219-31-PW, which was approved by council via the 2019 capital budget. The part I'm having some real difficulty with is the second tender, 2019-35-PW, which I don't believe council had any information on these particular expenditures or these particular tenders. And I'm having some real difficulty with it because this was additional funding that came to Springwater Township, and we were aware of it last spring, or maybe it was closer to the summer. However, nothing was brought forth to indicate where these funds might go. And I think the problem I'm having mostly here is that we had a lot of discussion, we had delegations, we took things out of our capital budget plan, and I'm viewing all of these particular ones here as items that weren't initially approved, and now all of a sudden they're appearing in a recommendation to put those funds towards. And I cannot support that. I feel that things that we should have done, could have done, should be revisited, and possibly some of the capital expenditures that we took out might be considered rather than look at new ways to spend this money. That's my thoughts on this, and I'm okay with the first part. I'm having some difficulty with the second part and cannot support that.
Okay, I'll direct that to CAO Schmidt and Director Coleman to respond to in whatever order you wish. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. I guess for clarification before I answer the question, are you referring to Table 4, the asphalt locations, or Table 4 and Table 2?
I'm referring to, I guess it's Part C to J. I think at the end of it, you indicate somewhere in the document, I'm sorry here, trying to leaf through it here, an expenditure of some $300 and some odd thousand, not necessarily in total. I'm sorry?
I believe from what you described, you're referring to the last two tables, which is C and
Yes,
J plus Table 4, which come to a total of that 300.
I think it ends up being 580. Yes, it comes to a total of $330,936,000.
So go ahead, Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So just to clarify, Table 2, the provisional items for microsurfacing, several of those, Golf Course Road, I think 7 West, 4 East, and Coghlan Road, are within the 2020, proposed 2020 budget. We've had some breakup over the winter that when we went back to staff and said we have some additional gas tax funding, what would they recommend? They recommended pulling these forward. In addition, the Old Second North at the railway crossing, the Doran and Russell Road intersection, the Russell Road and Story Road curve, and that would be it. Those are spots that broke up over the winter. There are spots where we had issues with significant flooding in February that washed the road out. So these are spots that have come forward since budget time and that we experienced issues with over the winter, where staff are asking for some minor patches of those locations. So those are how we've selected those. So like I said, some are moved forward from the 2020 budget, some are issues that arose over the winter. And then to jump forward to Table 2, I think they're fairly self-explanatory, what's happened there. Yard 1, we did some renovations last year. And
Actually, you're
the,
referring to table 4, I believe.
or
right?
table 4, sorry. So the yard 1, we had some renovations last year that you're aware of, that resulted in a partial gravel parking lot and driveway. And then we've done the fuel tank replacement this year that has resulted in some more gravel areas. So that would be the estimate to repair those. The Finley Mill Road, as you recall, I believe it was in August, there was a concerned resident with a really rough stretch near Waddy Road. We have noticed it ourselves. In fact, we asked our previous contractor for a quote to repair that, and it was too astronomical at that time. Finley Mill, you won't see it in a capital budget anytime soon because it's related to the Midhurst Transportation EA. So I won't spend any further capital money on that except to repair this rough section. The bridge approaches on Wilson Road. Wilson Road is coming up soon, but this is just a few hundred meters, probably not even a few hundred meters on each side of the bridge, just to bring that up so that we're not getting the rough bump, I guess, at the bridge. And the driveways on Vesper Valley Road, this year we redid Vesper Valley Road, but we also wanted to do some ditching. Unfortunately, the timing of the ditching was after we paved the road, so we have about 6 driveways there that need to be repaved. And the Midhurst Pavilion and the Stone Street parking lot were requests from the Director of Recreation Parks and Facilities. So hopefully that clarifies some, and if you have any other questions.
Councillor Ritchie?
Mayor Allen, I'd like to see this deferred until further discussion. I think there's some people that'd like to come forward and speak about this money that's being spent, this gas tax money, this newfound money that staff decided should go into these projects. But I think there's some groups that would like to come forward maybe to the next meeting and speak about what should be done with theirs. So, you know what, a couple weeks ain't gonna make any difference here nor there. Let's park this until these groups come forward and speak and have their say, and maybe we can make some changes. And until that time, we defer it. That's my decision on that.
So, Councillor Ritchie, you're making a motion to defer this report to a specific meeting date, or?
Even the next council meeting.
Okay. CAO Schmidt or Director Coleman, we need to get a seconder first of all, but do you have any, is that time frame? Yep, okay. Seconder for that, Councillor Moore, is that a seconder? Okay, go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Director Coleman. At our Agricultural Advisory Committee meeting, we talked all about roads. That was the whole conversation, meeting was about roads. Did you incorporate some of their concerns and the particular intersections and curves? Are they included in some of these repairs? Thank you.
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor. This tender actually went out before the meeting. So specific comments from that meeting, no. One of their comments, well, actually a few of their comments do fall into here, but it was just sheerly out of us thinking along the same lines.
Follow on?
So then, Director Coleman, or Mayor Allen, sorry, what I'd like to say then, and further to Councillor Ritchie's point, I'd like to invite maybe a couple of members then from the Agricultural Advisory Committee to make a presentation about what they were requesting Township do about roads they were concerned about. So I would support the deferral.
So in the deferral, we need to, we need some more direction to be given to staff with respect to what it is we want to come back with. So do you have a comment, CAO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess from staff's perspective is that Part A and B of the first tender, staff would, that was obviously discussed and approved through the 2019 capital budget. So, we would hope that council would support moving forward with that right away. As for the other parts, parts C through J and the other tender, if council wishes to defer those areas, then we can do so. The only thing that I was trying to get conversing with Director Coleman was on timing of when stuff can be done. So again, if we delay some of this stuff, then obviously understanding that some of the work may not get done should council proceed to try to approve it in a future meeting, that's all. I just don't know what that time frame is, to be honest with you, so.
I just recall when Mr. Spring came and delegated to us, the conclusion of council, as I recall, was that we were going to take these considerations into effect with the next budget process, operating and capital, which we're going to be getting into in another month's time. I know we've got this gas tax money, but my question and concern is that I don't think we should be rushing into doing these projects until we go through a broader, more exhaustive review of our 1-year and 10-year capital plan as part and parcel of the total budgeting process. So to have another delegation and another report coming forward in 2 to 4 weeks puts us right at the cusp of the budget process, where we'll be going through again the operating and capital 1-year and 10-year process. So I agree with parts A and B, but I would like to see these other things be part of the budgeting process. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Comment. We've been waiting a very, very long time for some of these other projects to take shape, and we didn't mind putting them on the shelf. The other comment I'd like to make is with respect to a concerned citizen that had a comment about their stretch of the road. That's exactly what Mr. Spring came here to do back in the spring, and we didn't get any action on that. The third one is actually a question I have for what our process is for tenders when money comes to the township and council hasn't directed or even got any idea what the proposals might be. What is our process for tendering contracts? I don't understand how it would happen that all of these things would be tendered and council would be unaware that these things were even going out for tender.
One second.
So right now,
Okay, we have the motion, which we have to consider to potentially divide it into 2 parts. The parts A and B, which were covered by the 2019 capital budget, could be a separate motion. And then with respect to the rest of it, a motion to defer until whenever to deal with it.
so what I would suggest that
Deputy Clerk Helmke, go ahead.
So what I would suggest is right now that there's a motion on the floor to defer, which we haven't completely got the whole motion through. What I would suggest, if you guys are looking to divide the question, if Councillor Ritchie would like to withdraw this motion at this moment, and someone wants to make a motion to divide the question, and that way you can deal with part A and B separately, and then you guys can combine the last 2 parts separately as one question and vote on that. So I bring it to Councillor Ritchie to see if you want to withdraw this motion at the moment.
So just process, would we be amending the motion that we're considering to basically take the back portion off and just be looking at the A and B? Would that be the first step? And then
The first step would be for Councillor Ritchie to withdraw his motion to defer, because right now it's encompassing everything. That's what we should be discussing at this moment.
Mayor
And
Allen.
then,
yes, Councillor Ritchie.
I agree with the clerk, so I'll withdraw what I originally said, but I will go back with the the first part that was approved in the 2019 budget move forward, but the latter part be deferred back to staff until further discussion is had. Is that fair with the clerk?
So the next option would be to make a motion to divide the question. So I can write that out and I can read it out, and then we can have a mover and seconder. And then once the question is divided, then we can deal with each part separately from the motion.
Let's keep this simple, okay?
Yep.
Just divide it, whatever you want.
Okay. Okay, so Deputy Clerk is going to make a motion, and Councillor Ritchie, you're moving this motion to divide it, is that my understanding? And a seconder for that, Councillor Cabral. Okay, I'll give you a pause to write that out. Well, that's happening, Deputy Mayor Coghlan.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you, just for my own clarification, when we say we're dividing it, so it's the first two tables that are incorporated into so A and B is being approved, and C to J is in the second part that we will deal with separately at another time, or after this one?
My understanding is C to J plus the table 4. Councillor Ritchie?
To reiterate what the Deputy Mayor said and what the CO said, the first part that was approved, we're going to move forward with that. It's the second part that we're going to defer until further discussion in regards to the gas tax. Is that correct, CO Schmidt?
Yes.
That's what we're after. Thank you.
Councillor Cabral?
I just noticed the word "and" here with respect to the tender. Is that going to be a separate motion again then, too?
Oh, to receive it for information?
No, we're, be received and tender be awarded. Tender be awarded. The last part, third part is in respect of, oh, I apologize, I've read it wrong.
Okay. Okay, so the motion by Ritchie, seconded by Cabral, that the motion before council be divided to deal with Part A and B of the tender 21931 dash PW separately, and that Part C through J of the tender 21931 PW and the tender 21935 PW be dealt with together. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, okay, so we need a mover and a seconder to get the first part, parts A and B, approved. The motion we just did was to split the two of them. So Councillor Cabral and Councillor Ritchie, that Part A and B of the tender 21931 PW for double microsurface and single surface treatment be awarded to Duncor Enterprises, Inc. in the amount of $52,910.25 plus HST. That's it. All those in favor? Carried. All right, so Deputy Clerk is doing a motion to defer Part C through J and the 21935 PW. Deputy Mayor Coghlan?
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you to Director Coleman. The work that is now being, or potentially being deferred, my question to you would be, if we bring this back at the next council meeting or the one following, is there any difference between that and waiting for it to be part of the budget deliberation for the 2020? The reason that I'm suggesting or questioning that, it would give us a better idea of all the work that needs to be done. And also on top of that, out of these jobs that you've listed here, and while respectfully, I understand that these are all a priority from staff, is there any that we would be doing, like if we don't fix it now, we're gonna have a greater cost come spring. So if there are any of those jobs that you feel we should be doing now, if we are going to push the rest of this off, I would suggest pushing it right into budget. But if there is anything that needs to be done today in the C through J in Table 4, I value and respect your opinion and would like to make sure that that gets done.
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I think in terms of C to J, there will be additional breakup of some of these sections over the winter and through the spring thaw, so they will likely grow in size. To say that the cost will be astronomical next year, that it'll be more, but it won't be significantly more. In terms of the other tender, the asphalt tender, I think all of these could wait, but I would respectfully ask for my staff that if we could pave Yard 1, and for the people on Vesper Valley Road, if we could pave their driveways. Thank you.
I just was, did a calculation of the items that talk about patching and breakage, and including the one on Friendly Mill Road that we had a delegation on. So, and they total $65,355, and that's including the Friendly Mill Road patch, and it's including the peoples whose driveways need to be repaved at the end of them, because they, obviously, we did some damage to those. So that totals $65,355 plus, if we're talking about Yard 1, where the gas tank, fuel tank was replaced, that's another $32. So that's $95,000. So just for information, Councillor Ritchie.
Marilyn, I just want to comment, like we're the 18th of September, and maybe the Director of Public Works can help me here, but I've seen people asphalt the first week of December, so we've got lots of time to defer this, and then have more discussion, and then have a final outcome, and let it go back to staff, and then they can send it out to tender and get on with the show. There's lots of room here in the year to get this done, so it's not as if, you know, we're going to get snow tomorrow. Maybe we could, but there's lots of room to move what we're doing, and we can still keep this aside from the budget. So, like, I think to defer it for now and give us a couple weeks and to come back, I don't see a problem with that. There's lots of room here to get this done before the end of the year. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you, respectfully to Councillor Ritchie, what new information is this council going to have 2 weeks from now? Is it that we're going out to the residents, or I'm just curious what some of us, thank you, respectfully. My concern is if we're going to defer it, I don't have a problem with that, but if there is jobs that we as a council can agree within this that need to move forward, I do feel that we as a council have been asking for a wholesome or fulsome 6-year, 10-year, and in order to get that plan in front of us, I think that comes forward during budget. So while I agree that, you know, COCO goes out and they work right through to December, but if there's jobs that need to be done now, for instance, driveways that we are responsible for, we should be correcting that. And Yard 1, if there's things that need to be done now, there's no reason why we can't pull those and defer the rest of it until a later date.
Well, I think just short answer to that is I think there's lots of time to cover what we want to do and still direct it to staff. If other people want to come forward and express their opinions, like Councillor Werner mentioned there about some of the people from the agricultural community talking about roads, let them to come forward and speak about it, and we'll deal with it then. And it still gives us lots of time before the end of the year to get these projects done. So deferring it is not going to hurt anything.
Okay, so, what does that say, that? Or that? Okay, the motion now, which we don't have a mover and seconder yet, parts C through J of the tender 21931 PW for double microsurface and single surface treatment, and that the tender 21935 PW for supply and place hot mix asphalt as outlined in table 4 be deferred to staff to, that's what I'm trying to do, looking for some suggestions. Councillor Cabral?
I think a suggestion might be, since none of these things were on the table initially, and if we didn't have this extra gas tax money, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. I think what we need to do is revisit some of the things we pulled off the table and see if we can include them. That's what I'd like to see. Thank you.
Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. But if we as a township damage some of those driveways on Vesper Valley Road, they should be done now.
Councillor Cabral?
I agree with Councillor Moore, and I'd like to know how the township, Councillor Chapman, Mao, I'd like to know how the township would deal with that in a previous situation when there was no additional funds in place. How would we mitigate those damaged driveways? I'm sure that we would still look after it. Where would the funds come from at that time?
Director Coleman and CAO Schmidt, in those situations, we have a liability to, an obligation, not a liability, an obligation to repair those, I presume, and where would those sorts of funds have come from?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I believe we would have went out with a tender earlier this year, when we may have had some surplus savings on that tender. So we could draw from those surplus funds, and/or we could draw from reserve if need be.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Coghlan?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to propose amendment to the previously read motion, and that with the exclusion or exception of Vesper Valley and Yard 1. I'm just looking for a seconder on that.
With the exclusion of Vesper Valley and Yard. That's a friendly amendment?
I don't know if that's acceptable to the mover and seconder.
We don't have a mover and seconder for the deferral yet?
So,
I'm going to support that, my motion to defer it, but I'm not a friendly amendment to yours.
okay.
Let's get a mover and a seconder.
Couple weeks
Okay,
ain't gonna hurt anything.
let's have a mover and a seconder for this motion. So that's Councillor Ritchie moving it and Councillor Cabral seconding it.
And what do we want deferred to staff for what?
Okay, Councillor Ritchie, you were the mover, so you want it deferred to staff to do what? To give them some, can you put your mic on, please?
Mayor Allen, I want more discussion held on this, and I'd like to see the agricultural community come in here and speak more about this. And we'll make our decision based on that.
Okay, so that part C through J of the tender 21931 PW for double microsurface and single treatment. You didn't say what?
And, because it's together.
And the tender 21935 PW for supply and place hot mix asphalt as outlined in table 4 be deferred to staff to have more discussion, and for the Agriculture Advisory Committee to be included consultant. Councillor Ritchie?
The agricultural community, I don't want anybody to be excluded from this.
Through the advisory committee. Okay, any further questions or discussions? Deputy Mayor Coghlan?
Thank you. And before there's a vote on the deferral, I would like to propose an amendment to the motion on the table with the exclusion of Vesper Valley driveways and Yard 1. Whether it's supported or not, just looking for a seconder.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Chapman? Okay, so everybody's aware of what that friendly amendment is. All those in favor? Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, that's defeated. Okay, so back to the original motion. I think we're clear on that. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Councillor Cabral has requested a recorded vote. I will read the motion as amended. That Part C through J of Tender 2019-31-PW for double microsurface and single surface treatment, and that Tender 2019-35-PW for supply in place hot mix asphalt as outlined in Table 4 be deferred to staff to have more discussion, and for the agricultural community to be included and consulted, with the exception of Vesper Valley driveways and Yard 1. So when
I'm sorry, that motion's not correct. We
Okay.
dealt with the driveways and as a friendly amendment, and it was defeated.
Okay, sorry. My apologies. So the motion reads out that Part C through J of Tender 2019-31-PW for double microsurface and single surface treatment, and that Tender 2019-35-PW for supply in place of hot mix asphalt, as outlined in Table 4, be deferred to staff to have more discussion, and for the agricultural community to be included and consulted. Recorded vote. Councillor Cabral, yea or nay?
Yay?
Councillor Jack Hanna, yea or nay?
Yes?
Councillor Wanda Ma Chapman, yea or nay?
Yes.
Councillor Anita Moore, yea or nay?
Yes.
Councillor Perry Ritchie, yea or nay?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Coghlan, yea or nay?
No?
Mayor Don Allen.
Yay.
Motion's carried.
Okay. Moving on to item 10, information reports. Resolution for reports received as information. Can I have a mover and a second to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ritchie. Of these items 1 through 7, any questions, comments? Councillor Moore? Question or poll? Poll, please. Okay, others? Councillor Cabral?
Fire department report, item 1.
Question or poll?
Sorry, question, Mayor Allen. I don't know if it can be answered, seeing as Chief Gabay's not here, but I'd like to give it a shot.
Okay, and any others?
Clerk Chapman.
No, she was just commenting on the mic, I believe. Okay, so question with respect to 1, the fire department, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you very much, Mayor Allen. A question I have is, I know we're getting more information here. I have to thank Councillor Moore for bringing that up and getting it on here. I guess my question is, on these, some of these calls, I noticed one here where 0 firefighters attended. be 19297, which is day 12 on Curry Drive, assist outside agencies investigation. ADM attended. I'm just wondering if nobody else attended because that was not a call that went out. That was one thing I wanted clarification on. And the other item, hopefully we can find out, is I know through the daytime, our on daytime staff, including the chief, will attend. But on some of these calls that are in the evening hours where firefighters respond when we already have our volunteers on site in sufficient numbers, I'm just curious to know, do we incur any soft dollars for the daytime staff to attend in the evening when they might not really be necessary?
I'll direct that question to CAO Schmidt. We might have to get back to you on that, but
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral. Yeah, my apologies. I'll follow up with our deputy chief and provide those answers to members of council.
Deputy Mayor Coghlan?
Thank you, and to CEO Smith. On top of that question, could I also get clarification on the number of firefighters responding? I would like to know if that is the number of firefighters using the system provided so that they actually push into their system that they are responding, because some don't push into the system but do get to the hall. I would also like to know if it's, when they say number of firefighters responding, if that is the people that got to the hall or the people who made the truck. So I'd like to know on clarification for that as well, please.
Thank you. CAO Schmidt is taking notes, so that will be dealt with. So we'll go ahead and do this motion that the reports for items listed herein be received as information. And that is 1, Fire Department Report, August 19, 2, minor variance application, 813-19R Mitchell, REEC 14467, County Road 27. 3, consent application B07-19R Mitchell, REEC 14467, County Road 27. Consent application B1119G Reynolds, B Trottier, 14383, County Road 27. Number 6, minor variance application A1619, P Vergilli, 2228 South Or Lake Road. Number 7, consent application B0619, Bob and Joanne Mitchell, RE 1316 Highway 26, with the exception of item 10.1.4 to be dealt with separately. All those in favor? Carried. So point 4, item, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Director Spagnol. So remember back when this application came forward to the Committee of Adjustments, so I'm going back a ways. It was a really interesting case, so I remember it really well. I'm curious, I know, and I see what they're trying to do now, but maybe you could provide council with some history on this application particularly, and secondly, why we wouldn't send this back to the committee for approval when there's so many on that committee that would have been involved with this original application. I would think that they would appreciate having some input now. Thank you.
Director Spagnol.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Moore. This property in this file does have some history to it. Originally, what had happened was the Mr. Coates, who is no longer with us, came in with an application to resever their parcel of land, which included the house, and I believe it did include some of the outbuildings. As a result of considerable discussion, from my recollection, the Committee of Adjustment refused the reseverance of the application, and the application went to the Ontario Municipal Board under an appeal. The appeal sat with the Ontario Municipal Board for, I want to say, at least 5 years, at which point, over that course, Mr. Coates passed away. Recently, what has happened is the estate for Mr. Coates withdrew their appeal for the reseverance, or sorry, for the severance of the property. And what has happened is the estate has managed to find a purchaser who is a farmer in the area who has significant land holdings, who has applied for a surplus farm dwelling severance. So as a result of the withdrawal of the appeal and the purchaser of the property being a bona fide farmer, now the application meets the surplus farm dwelling severance policies under the official plan, which is why this application has now come before the Committee of Adjustment again. The key point here to make is that it isn't a straight reseverance or a severance. It is actually a surplus farm dwelling severance and a boundary adjustment. And it's staff's recommendation that the applications be approved as they do conform with those policies in the official plan.
Follow on?
Thank you. Would there be any harm, though, with forwarding this off to the committee to review? I would like to do that if possible.
Director Spagnell?
Mayor Allen, through you to the Councillor Moore. The application is an information item for council, and the Committee of Adjustment will have to make a decision on this application in the next meeting coming forward. The history of the application will be relayed onto the committee just as to how this has evolved from a standpoint of an appeal and a withdrawal of the appeal. And really the merits of the application have changed from what was originally considered by the committee. So staff can make that apparent to the Committee of Adjustment.
Okay, so, a mover and a seconder to, with respect to this item then, Councillor Moore and Councillor Chapman. That item 10.1.4 be received for information. All those in favor? Carried. Verbal reports. Item 11.1 and 2, official plan update and the economic development updates. Director Spagnell?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I don't have anything new to report about the official plan update. However, I'd like to report back based on some feedback that I received from staff about the breakfast on the farm at Berry Hill Farms that just occurred this past weekend. There was 2,000 people there. I understand it was a well-run event. I understand that Springwater was well represented through its booth and through the supply of some water bottles. And we have received some very nice pictures of the event that will probably be updated or uploaded onto our website just for our use as part of our branding through that event. One other item is staff is working with representatives from Autumn Fest with respect to a Springwater booth and a climbing wall, and staff is also in discussion with members of the Fall Fair as well, so that there's a township presence at that event.
Thank you, Director Spagnell. Maybe you'd remind us as well about the meeting next Monday on the official plan review. Does that, we're talking about the official plan next Monday, right? 23rd?
Mayor Allen, no, we will not be talking about the official plan review on the 23rd. What will be coming forward is a report regarding the provincial policy statement, and staff is looking at meeting dates to bring forward a public meeting on the official plan review, potentially in October, or we're looking in November.
Okay, thank you. I would reiterate your comments about the breakfast. We were at it, my wife and I and our grandkids and daughter. It was a fantastic event, great volunteers, great exhibits, learned a lot, and there were tours, so it was a wonderful event. And it was great that Springwater was there, the water bottles, the information that Brianna and Natalie were there, and Simcoe County also volunteered their services, and that was much appreciated. So this was the first breakfast at the farm that this organization had done in Simcoe County and this far north. They do 2 of them a year. Last one was done down in Windsor, but a lot of people came and enjoyed it, and it was the Gervais farm was a great farm to have that happen, so that was great. Okay, county update. Deputy Mayor Coghlan was not there last time, and so Councillor Cabral was there. Do you have anything to report on it, Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yeah, a few tidbits here. most of it tended to be housekeeping, as far as I could see. They were looking at how they were going to spend budgets and what their budgets were looking for the various departments. A couple of things that I took note of is, it was interesting to find out that they received some positive news regarding funding from Immigration and Citizen Canada to support ongoing activities of Simcoe County Local Immigration Partnership. It had been positively assessed and approved in principle, so the approved project will be 5 years from April 2019 to March 2025, I guess that would be, or 2024. Local immigration partnerships are focused on the development of settlement strategies for newcomers in Simcoe County. So worthwhile for the new people we're trying to attract, and those that already get here, they help them get acclimatized. There was also information regarding the Ontario Municipal Commuter Cycling Program, and its aim is to reduce greenhouse gases. Simcoe County had some funding from them to create some cycling infrastructure, and the one thing that was key there was the projects had to be finished by December 31st, and one of the main ones, the Barrie Collingwood Trail Rail, was removed because engineering and transportation department design and construction made it so that it wouldn't be completed by December 31st, so they're looking to allocate funds to other projects. The other thing that I was interested to learn was that they're continuing the partnership with community colleges for the paramedic student preceptorship program as part of the provincial paramedic training program. And something that's close to all of our hearts, waste disposal. I don't know about you folks, but it's not happening at my house on a regular basis, or picking up what they should be picking up. Sometimes it's out there, sometimes it's not. But the county's continuing to struggle with its waste disposal due to a lack of staffing, a high turnover rate, their ongoing missed regular pickups and either being delayed, or some of the special pickups have been discontinued because of these impacting factors. Right now they're focusing on picking up garbage and organics per the schedule. However, recycling remains to be impacted until they get things back in place. They're looking at short-term solutions, possibly the addition of other service providers in some areas to help with the load, better communication with the residents when pickup is missed, as well as their long-term solutions. The one thing that came from it is there's no easy fix due to the type of work, labor force availability, and unique training and turnover issues. And that was pretty well it.
Thank you, Councillor Cabral. Deputy Mayor Coghlan?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And on that, is there an opportunity for us through our website to push to Springwater residents about the Waste app? Just because we are experiencing such delays in garbage disposal, like, it would be a great tool, because I know that the county is communicating directly to people saying, put it out, take it back in, and if we can, I know we've done it once, if we could do it again, that would be great.
Okay, yes, we will do that. Councillor Cabral?
Just curious how many council members subscribe right now? Okay, I do, and I find it very, very helpful, because when they missed my recycling, they told me, don't worry, it'll be picked up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Of course, it wasn't, but I think that's because they just happened to miss it in the
They
grass.
keep informing you. They
They
keep
got
you up to date.
everybody else's but mine.
And as Councillor Cabral said, that was taking it very seriously. I know next week when we're going to be having another fulsome report and discussion on it. So it is broken, and we're trying to get it fixed, but it's a big problem with big dollars associated with it. Did you, yes, Director Spagnol?
Mayor Allen, my apologies, the light bulb just went off about official plan updates in the 23rd.
Okay, Director Belcourt.
I've been called worse. And if I look as good as him at retirement, I'll be a happy man.
It's a long way away.
Sorry. What you were mentioning was, Mayor Allen, was the official plan update relative to the pre-consultation process, where as part of the public meeting, staff will be presenting a protocol and policy needed to require pre-consultation for applications under the Planning Act. My apologies again, but
Thank you. I just took it out of my calendar, so I'll put it back in. Okay, yes, Councillor Ritchie.
I'd like to speak about the official plan, but it kind of coincides with municipal updates, so either I speak about it now or I wait.
We're moving on to municipal updates.
Well, I
so
can
you
speak
lead-
about it then.
You lead the way. Go ahead.
On September the 8th, I was in Waverly for that memorial celebration there. There's a cenotaph in Waverly, just to explain to council. And it represents the 4 municipalities of years gone by. You have Tiny in the north, you have Tay in the east, and then, of course, there's Springwater, and I was there to represent them, and of course, Oro-Madani. Well, at one time, it was Madani, so there's the 4 municipalities, so there's a cenotaph there. And a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and again, I was there to represent the township. There was other people there to represent MPs, and I always take a great honor in representing our fallen people that have gone before us. And of course, standing talking to some of the other council members from Tay and Oro-Madani and that, of course, they were asking me about what's going on in Springwater Township and what's new, and of course, I'm sure I don't have to tell you, but one of the conversations was we were talking about the official plan. And these 2 municipalities, our neighboring municipalities, have been doing their official plan for some time now, and they're almost done. And yet the minister told them to stop, so they've stopped. They're not doing it. They're waiting for the review. So my question, Mayor Allen, is why are we still moving forward with this? Like, we're just coming out of the gate. We should be stopped. These other municipalities are not moving forward, and I can see if you're almost finished, then why not just finish it off and then you're done. But they've stopped and they're not moving forward until this review is done.
Okay.
It could be later on this year or whatever. So I have a concern about that. Why are we moving forward?
Director Spagnell, maybe you could respond.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Ritchie. In previous discussions that staff had with council, I think it was a couple of months ago, that question was looked at because the letter that, as I understand it, that was submitted by the ministry was recommending that municipalities not move forward with any major planning exercises. When the official plan review process was outlined, it was done in phases. And the first phase of that process was to establish a discussion paper to outline the issues that Springwater would need to address, along with outlining a growth management strategy that would provide some future forecasts as to what the municipality would be facing from a growth perspective. That represents the first phase. At any rate, the understanding and the discussion that ensued was that when we're taking a look at moving forward with this planning exercise, at bare minimum, at least there is the groundwork is laid to move forward in whatever the process may be as part of phase 2. So in other words, the discussion paper will still outline the issues that are relative to Springwater and its residents, and the growth management strategy would still paint a picture as to what type of growth would be moving forward in the future. So because the official plan review process is phased in that manner, at least if the municipality can get to a point where those documents are endorsed and accepted, and whatever flows out from the regional review, the municipality will be able to adjust its work program as part of phase 2.
Okay. Follow
Mayor
on.
Allen, we don't know what's going to happen with this regional review. We don't know whether we're going to be carved up like a Christmas turkey, split in half. We don't know. And I'm going to bring a notice of motion here, and I'll read this when we get to the notice of motion, but I'm not comfortable with what we're doing.
Okay.
These municipalities are all stopped, and yet we're moving forward. So stop means stop.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other municipal updates? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I have 2. First is the Ant Mills Recreation Committee had their fun day on September 7th. The rain held off, and it was a really fun day. At the same time, we had the unreveal of the Save Station, so we got to check it out and see how it works. I think that's going to be awesome, and I know Dennis has been around to all the other hall boards to make a decision on where the other safe station will be put on the halls, which is great. Second, exciting is this weekend is Doors Open, our 25th anniversary. It's held here at the township office between 10 and 4. We will have a greeter at the door. We have gifts for everyone who comes in, a little tree sapling with these pins that the township made. There'll be food, cupcakes, and tea and coffee, I should say, building tours, and we will have tables set up with artifacts through the Heritage Committee, and a video ongoing throughout the day showing the past mayors and different committees at that time, and different pictures you've seen on the website that they've been posting heritage pictures, which is awesome. So hopefully everyone will come out Saturday between 10 and 4.
Thank you, Councillor Cabral. Sorry, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Two things to add. The libraries will be closed September 30th for training, so that everybody knows that. And to compete with Doors Open, unfortunately, our second annual Fall Craft and Vendor Show is happening Saturday at the Grenfell Hall from 10 till 3. We have about 70 vendors booked, including food trucks, but all interesting and non-competing vendors. Great Christmas gifts, lots of one-of-a-kind booths. So I would strongly encourage everybody to come. We had about 750 to 1,000 people there last year. So it's a fabulous turnout. That's it.
Hopefully you'll be able to slide into both of those in that time frame. Councillor Hannah?
On Saturday, September the 28th is the Midhurst 50th Anniversary Autumn Fest Fall Fair and Parade. And I think we all know how hard it is to get volunteers. So you can imagine 50 years they've been running Autumn Fest. It is run by all volunteers, but they couldn't do it without the help of our staff. And I have to compliment our new CAO, because I know he's been out there attending the pavilion where the new pavilion is the new Springwater Pavilion that's in Midhurst is where our Autumn Fest will take place this year. And CO Schmidt has been very helpful with the volunteers to try to make this come together, as well as other members of staff. What else did I want to tell you? The issue comes up again with the ATVs in the parade, being allowed to be in the parade and so on. I'll speak to that in the items for future consideration.
Any other municipal updates? Okay, so we move on to notices of motion. We've dealt with 12.1, so 12.2. Motion presented by Councillor Cabral. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hannah. And this respect to funding for the Child Advocacy Center of Simcoe Muskoka. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. As you recall, we had a delegation presented to us regarding the Child Advocacy Center. This center, actually there's two of them we found out, one in Orillia, one in Barrie, but it services all of Simcoe County, and I would suspect that there'd probably be some policing agencies that will utilize it that are outside the catchment area. My particular background, the issue that struck me is these tend to be the kids that are most vulnerable. These are the kids that we don't find out what their names are because of the type of offenses that take place, sexual and physical assault, quite often to someone in the family or a close friend or a family friend. I looked at the sheet there, and she, when she was doing her presentation, she indicated that initially these started happening. I think the first one was the Kristen French one out Oakville Way. I don't know if you recall her, Kristen French, and the other gal's name escapes me right now, but we don't need to go there. It was an awful thing that happened. Anyway, she was seeking, I think, $11,000 in change from the council, and it was based on her her data that showed we had about 8,500 youth in Springwater Township, and I think she was attributing a couple of bucks for each youth. Anyway, I think it's something that council should support. It's something that the kids and their parents in Springwater Township are using. We just don't know which ones. And according to her statistics, their caseload's going up and up. And that particular pictures that she was showing there, they have an examination room, everything's soft in there. It's so much better than police investigating these things and taking statements from children and parents in, crass, cold police stations, or in an open, can't get too much privacy in the emergency ward at the hospital, although they do their best. So that's what my motion is based on. I think it's something we should support because we're utilizing the service. We just don't know it. I don't know what the amount would be. My understanding is that there is still some funds available in the Springwater Swing. However, I also think it might be something to consider to actually include this as a budget item. I don't see this going away, and from what we were told and what her statement bears out, municipalities are kicking more in. The provincial government hasn't, I think this year, I don't know if the provincial government kicked in, but I know the federal government has again this year, but I think provincial government just gave money the first year, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd like to see council support this by providing some level of financial support.
Councillor Cabral, are you proposing a number to fill in for a dollar amount?
I believe the original amount was $11,000 and change.
$2 per child.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to support that. At the minimum, I would suggest $10,000.
Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, and I support the whole initiative. I had concerns with the funding formula. We don't know how many children in Springwater Township have ever been in need or have had used this facility, and I assume it probably has been. My other question is, this is a benefit to the OPP as well. They benefit from this service because it helps them when they're called out, or Children's Aid or whoever. I think they should be stepping up as well, and when the Inspector Brown was here from the OPP, I guess I should have asked him what sort of fundraising they plan on doing to help benefit this. As you know, the police run their own golf tournaments and do fundraising. I think this would be a good initiative for them as well. So while I support it, I'm just not sure how the funding formula should work. If, for example, just say there's nobody in Springwater that ever uses it, we're supporting children otherwhere. Not that we shouldn't do that, but I'd like to see where other municipalities are in this as well. So I'm just not sure how to come up with a funding formula.
I actually communicated with Tracy Carter and got a response just late this afternoon. And I'll share some of that information with you. I was looking at the financials, and as you can see from them, which she provided, the provincial funding is zero, but she states prior to 2018, a significant portion of our revenue was generated through provincial police agency grants. In June 2018, with the change in provincial government, these grants were no longer available. Also, provincial funding of $44,405 in fiscal 2017 and 18 was the balance owing at the end of the 3-year Ontario Trillium grant supporting abuse prevention services. In September 2017, the CACSM opened a satellite center in Barrie. Since that time, demand for services has increased. 255% additional staff were required to meet the growing need within our communities. So that is why the staffing numbers, wage and benefit, increased from 227,000 to 352,000, a 55% increase. 218 or 219 over 218. I asked the sources of revenues for fiscal year ended 17-18 municipal government funding included police grants, 69, I'll round it out, 70,000 from Barrie Police Services Board, City of Barrie, and 75,000 through the Orillia Police Services Board. For fiscal year ended 18 and 19, municipal government funding included 90,000 from the City of Barrie, 73,000 through the final Barrie Police Services grant, and 16,000 from the City of Orillia, and $3,700 from final Aurelia Police Services grant. So I agree with the cause and the concept. I find an amount that was requested of 11,000 and change, 11,500, steep for given what we're facing. I would imagine we're facing with all of our budget challenges coming up. So I would agree to support it, but at a lesser amount, and I would propose be interested in a lesser amount. Councillor Hanna?
Thank you. I didn't have all that information, so it's nice to see other agencies are stepping up. Did you happen to hear, or did she share with you how much Springwater has benefited from this?
No.
And I didn't hear you mention anything that the OPP had contributed.
Well, the Barrie Police Services, no, it doesn't appear that the OPP, from what she responded, the OPP did not respond. She did not give me figures, although she'd be willing to provide any information we asked, but specific figures for Springwater as to usage didn't get, but we could get that. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. It's not the type of incident that we're going to find out who these kids are anyway. It's as simple as that. And we know they're coming from somewhere because they're going to that center, and the numbers are increasing. Whether they're from Barrie or elsewhere, I would hazard to say that with our population of 20,000, we'd be hard-pressed to say that it's not happening in our community. The other thing I'd like to say is she said during the conversation that she would be making presentations to other municipal councils. And I think it would bode well for Springwater Council to say that we're supporting it, maybe at a lesser amount. Maybe I can pop up with another figure that would be more palatable. But I think it would probably assist her in securing funding from other municipalities that are also utilizing the service, but obviously they don't know it. So maybe $7,000 or $7,500 might be more palatable.
Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm just thinking out loud, if we supported it might be totally out of character, but if we supported the physician at, I think, 7,800 or 8,000, maybe we can support this at the same rate?
And I believe that is, well, between the two area physicians, it's 11. The Barrie portion is what, 8,000? I was thinking more, well, we don't have the final, 5,000 was what I was thinking for an initial, and then we review it next year. Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you to the rest of council. I think 5,000 in itself is a generous amount of money. I think that there are many organizations. We just raised the Big Brothers Big Sisters flag today, and I think that we as a council, I think it's when people come forward and we have to find a way to do it and to support our community. I wouldn't be able to support 11,000 because I do feel that there are many different causes out there with mental health issues and so much that our kids are going through. I think that 5,000 is something that I could support, but even at that, I mean, our local food banks and how we support our communities, that number is a lot larger than typical. So myself, if we could bring the number down, I do want to support that. I think that's the consensus of the table, but not over 5 myself.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you. I think it's important for us to understand that the kids that are going there are kids that are suffering from a particular type of abuse. And that's why we won't find out who they are. They're either been sexually abused, long-term in some cases, or physically abused, and charges have been laid, and that's why we're not going to find out who the perpetrators are. I think $7,000 is reasonable, and I'm going to suggest that my motion include the figure of $7,000, and hopefully it'll pass and we can review it at a later date. We do support the food bank. I think we're doing a great job of doing that too, and I agree that there are other organizations out there. This particular organization, however, I think should be focused on doing the work, not fundraising. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Hannah?
I support the 7,000. That's $1,000 per member at this table.
You getting your checkbook out there, Jack? Councillor Ritchie?
Mayor Allen, I just want to point out, while we're talking about helping these young kids today, about the work that our South Georgian Bay Health Unit does that's located in Elmville in providing a nurse practitioner and a nurse and at our Springwater headquarters there in Elmville, where you can go and get your blood work taken. But the point I'm trying to make, they also send a nurse down to the high school quite often on a regular basis to address issues there with young kids. So I'm just bringing that to light because we are doing something. We do support South Simcoe Georgian Bay Health Services. They are having a nurse going down there to help these young kids today. So I think it's not the full amount that we're going to give them, but I would support the $7,000. I think between that we give and what we're doing with that nurse at the high school, I think shows that we're listening and we care. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other so the motion has $7,000 in it. Any other comments or questions before we vote? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, any other notices of motion? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'd like to put a notice of motion forward for the newcomer recognition sponsorship through the County of Simcoe.
Okay, and do we have wording for the notice of motion? No, we don't need it. We'll follow up with that. Okay, thank you. Any other notices of motion? Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Be it resolved that this council direct all staff and planning staff to stop all work on the new official plan until after the regional review has been announced.
Okay, thank you. Any other notices of motion? Okay, moving on to items for future consideration, 13.1. Any of those? Councillor Anna?
Thank you, and I have to apologize to the people from the ATV folks that were here. They were hoping that we could come up with an exemption to allow the ATVs to be used in official township sanctioned parades, if you like. I believe they do happen in the Fall Fair and places like that. I don't know for sure, but that's what I was told. And obviously with the Midhurst Autumn Fest coming up on the 28th, they'd like to be able to participate in that parade. So my future consideration, which would be in the near future, would be that we adjust our bylaw to allow ATVs to take place in official parades.
We need a seconder for that, and that's Deputy Mayor Coghlan. That the township bylaws be reviewed to permit ATVs to participate in official township event parades. Any comments with respect to that from staff? CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there has been actually some dialogue with respect to this matter with the Midhurst Community Recreation Association. Staff did indicate to them that the use of the ATV could be used, or ATVs, could be used in the parade, specifically in the parade only, and that they would be responsible for trailering the ATVs to the beginning of the parade and also at the end of the parade, trailering the ATVs and hence not essentially driving the ATVs all over the township roads or elsewhere. So we are trying to work with them on that, and that was what we had proposed to them. I'm not aware of what the update is at this stage, but we have essentially allowed them, again, based on those premises, though.
Okay, so does that cover it, Councillor Hannah, then?
Reasonable to me, I was just passing on the request.
Okay. All right. Deputy Mayor Coghlan?
Yeah, and sorry, just on that, when it says township official township events, the other parades, like the Elmville Fall Fair, isn't a official township event, so is it palatable to add to that? Because it's not sanctioned by the township, as far as I know. It's run by the Agricultural Society.
CAO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe what I'd indicated regarding Autumn Fest or Midhurst specifically, I believe that also does apply for the Fall Fair as well. And I stand to be corrected, but my understanding is that I believe that request came in maybe last year, and I think what I'd mentioned, the same criteria kind of was provided to the applicants.
Springwater Affairs. So if we add township event parades and township fairs, Clerk Chaperon?
Thank you, and just to note that through our special event permitting, the fall fair and those types of events are recognized as municipally significant already. So that's how that would be deemed.
All right, so we don't need to add it. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, and I want to thank the CAO for his efforts, but the reason I said official, I didn't want a couple of people driving down the road and say we're having a parade. So I was trying to work around that.
Just put some streamers on it, you're good to go.
Okay. So we're clear on that. All those in favor of this then? Carried. Any other items for future consideration? I think we've got a few. Okay, moving on to bylaws. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the bylaws, please? Councillor Cabral, Deputy Mayor Coghlan. That bylaws listed herein be signed, sealed by the Mayor and Clerk. 2/1971, Reapto Glen, 2/1972 to amend fees and charges bylaw, and 2/1973 amend bylaw 2/1882, appointment of fence viewers. All those in favor? Carried. Mover and a seconder to confirm proceedings of council. Councillor Moore, Councillor Chapman. The bylaw 2/1974 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held September 18, 2019, listed herein be signed and sealed by the Mayor and Clerk. All those in favor? Carried. An adjournment, Councillor Ritchie, Deputy Mayor Coghlan. Regular meeting, Township of Springwater adjourned at 8:47 to meet on October 2nd, 2019, 6:30 p.m. Council Chambers Admin Center, Missing. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in.